I have to mentally prepare myself for this particular video. Usually I can just go into a commentary and just talk and give my perspective on things. But this story right here, while I will read the article, I don't know. I'm going to try to remain as calm as possible because this has probably got to be one of the biggest stories that is going to come out of 2018 out of anything I've ever talked about. And I mean just that. And I have to give a shout out to Nicole's View and any other black YouTuber that has spoken about this, because this deserves to not only be talked about this week, but it needs to be talked about for many more weeks and years to come. Because while this is a huge discovery in just one part of the establishment, I'm almost certain that it's prevalent. It's pretty much it's elsewhere. Let me put it like that. So yesterday, according to the date of this article, it says nearly 100 bodies found at a Texas construction site were probably black people forced into labor after slavery ended. Now, why does that sound like something straight out of the 13th Amendment? These were individuals that were quote unquote free from slavery, only to be sent right back into another form of bondage. And I would not be surprised if they trumped up charges against these black men just to have them put in these prisons and these cells and these chain gangs just to do more additional work for them. But see, they did it like this because then they couldn't call it slavery. They called it something else. But those of us with a functioning brain and mind know that this is exactly what it was. It was nothing but an additional form of slavery, just like the industrial prison system of today is the same thing, but they won't call it slavery. They can't call it that because then they would lose a lot of funding. They would have to release all the prisoners, so on and so forth. It just wouldn't work in their favor. Like, just looking at this image alone is disgusting. You see all those white little dots right there? Those are sheets that are covering skeleton bones of deceased bodies that were buried there after they died doing prison labor. Is basically post chattel slavery, slavery 2.0. And we don't even have to discuss who was behind this whole thing. We already know. This can tack on to the additional reasons of why I say I feel nothing when it comes to them and their issues. Then when I was looking through some of the comments on Twitter, because believe it or not, this story is actually currently trending #1 world, or at least in the States it is. And I'm looking at some of the comments that some white people are leaving, and they're saying, why do they have to bring up stuff like this? All they're going to do is incite black people to not like white people. Well, truth be told, to the white people who feel that way, many black people already don't like your wicked ass. They don't like your ancestors. They don't like you. They don't like your kids. They don't like your family members. They don't even like your family pet. That's how many black people, believe it or not, have a disdain towards you. And the fact that you're even saying that lets me know two things. One, you want us to like you, and two, you are in fear of us hating you. Why? Because you're afraid that we might actually rise up and actually destroy you before you get a chance to destroy yourselves. Not to say that you're not already doing it because you're going through a so-called genocide, but we would just speed up the process. Contrary to popular belief, not every black person is here to kiss your ass. And I'm proud to say that I am one of the ones that will not kiss your ass. Not today, not tomorrow, the day after that, the week after that, and so on and so forth. Many, like, I'm telling you, like, if you go and look through some of those comments, they are actually in fear of us not liking them. They said that this is a media ploy and that this is propaganda talk. Someone even said that this is like a game to them. Let me go ahead and just read this article. It says, months after a Texas school district broke ground on a new technical center, archaeologists there made a surprising discovery: the long buried remains of 95 people. The first remains were discovered in February in Sugarland, a suburb southwest of Houston, and now officials have learned who these people probably were: freed black people forced to work in convict labor camps. Over a century, these graves were underground and untouched, but the finding that they likely held the remains of slaves, which researchers announced Monday, highlights an era that largely forgotten in history. To be honest, they didn't forget about it. They chose to leave it out. That's what it was. Let's just be real here. They chose to leave this part of history out because, see, they want to do all these wicked things to other groups of people, especially us in this story, but they don't want to face the repercussions when people discover their wicked ways. That's why you'll have many white people saying the things that they say online. Why you got to bring that stuff up? It was in the past. Why can't we just let it go? Why can't they just respect the dead and this, that, and the third? Well, guess what, motherfuckers? You didn't respect them in life. And in the words of True Royal Family, y'all gonna get this work today, tomorrow, the day after that, the day after that, until we're tired. Too bad there's not a limitless pill in real life, because then we would really get in on your ass forever and stay there until we decide that we're done with you. A time when slavery was illegal, but many blacks were essentially still enslaved. See, like I said, it was illegal because technically chattel slavery was abolished, but they had to put them there, and they didn't call it slavery. They called it something else, and then still kept them as slaves. The Sugarland property is owned by the Fort Bend Independent School District, which is building its new technical school on the land. It's a remarkable opportunity for our community and our school district to learn much more about the history of our local region, Superintendent Charles Dupre said in a statement. Now, here's my thing. Y'all going to build this school over this area. Now, my thing is, y'all had to have known this was there before they even found these bodies. You had to have known. That's why they were building it there, because if they built it there then and everything was done and the foundation was laid, there was no way that they could dig up something that's built there and find that. And now this superintendent, or whoever he is, he's giving this baseless BS of a statement talking about now we can learn about their history. He wouldn't have said that had that school been built. They had to try to put something there to cover up their tracks and that no one would know about it. It makes you wonder how many other graves there are built around this establishment that we don't know about. Hell, our homes could be sitting over a grave right about now. Who knows? I'm sure y'all are familiar with the movie Poltergeist. That's exactly why in that movie all that shit was happening, because the house in that movie was built over shallow graves and no spirits were haunting people in that house. Let's see here. Let me keep going down. It says the site's archaeological project manager agrees. It's a rare opportunity. Rain Clark of Goshawk Environmental Consulting told CNN. We'll be telling the story of what it is like to live here, work here, and in some cases, die here. How they were found. It started with a hunch. Reginald Moore took an interest in historical cemeteries after working as a Texas state prison guard in the 1980s. He no longer works at the prison, but he's still a community activist. One of his main focuses is getting people to recognize the abuses of the Sugarland convict leasing system, in which prison inmates were forced into labor. I felt like I had the duty to be an advocate for them and to speak from the grave for these people. All I can say is this Reginald Moore character, he better watch his back, because they're going to come for his ass. I'm almost certain for it. Moore is the caretaker of another cemetery in Fort Bend County, the Imperial Farm Cemetery, which is nestled behind a shopping center off the highway. Near the cemetery is the home of the school district's new James Reese Career and Technical Center. So when construction on the Sugar Land School Center started last fall, Moore told officials that other cemeteries might be nearby. He has documented and provided a lot of information about the history of that cemetery. He has a lot of ideas what the burials could have been, said Chris Florence of the Texas Historical Commission, which has played an advisory role in the project. The bodies were each buried in individual wooden caskets. Of those analyzed so far, all but one are men. Researchers say they could have been as young as 14 and as old as 70. They were probably buried between 1878 and 1910, Clark said. Despite the passage of time, researchers can tell that the workers were malnourished or sick and faced huge physical stress when they were alive. Clark said that there is a lot of evidence that they were doing very heavy labor that for some began at a young age. We can tell from the state of the bone and the muscle attachment features that these were heavily built individuals. Some bones were misshapen by the sheer musculature and labor, Clark told CNN. Moore wasn't the only one who wasn't shocked at the discovery. Florence said his commission took a role in the project knowing a find like this could happen. It's not uncommon in Texas. Well, if that's the case, then they need to scatter around Texas some more and see what else they can find. What was shocking, though, was how hard the graves were to find. The commission had done assessments before construction began, Florence said, but the land was so altered over the years that it was hard to know anything would be there. One of the biggest problems with old cemeteries is that the markers might have gone away. There's no surface evidence. There are 177 cemeteries in Fort Bend County, but there could have been as many as 50,000 cemeteries across the state. Only 1,706 have a historic Texas cemetery designation. President Lincoln's 1863 Emancipation Proclamation said all slaves who lived in states that had seceded from the U.S. were free. The 13th Amendment, ratified in 1865, formally abolished slavery in all of the U.S. That doesn't mean forced labor did not continue. After the Civil War ended in 1865, the slaves were outlawed. The Texas economy dropped into a deep depression. Businesses needed a new form of cheap labor, so they resorted to prisons. That right there speaks volumes. So now you see why and how the prison system got started and who they decided to start with. The convict leasing system was essentially slavery all over again. The prisons were taken from state prisons and leased to private business people who worked the laborers as hard as they could for the cheapest price. And the less food, water, and shelter these workers got, the less they cost. One 14-year-old was 6 feet tall, Clark told CNN. This population was hand-selected. Sugar Land's economy had thrived on sugarcane plantations, which largely relied on slave labor, so two Confederate veterans, Edward Cunningham and Littlebury Ellis, signed a contract with the state in 1878 to lease the state's prisons population. Now notice it says Confederate. These are the same people that waved that flag around, that Confederate flag, and they named two of them who were a part of this leasing program. But they claim it's Southern heritage. Conditions were so bad that the city got itself a new nickname, Hellhole on the Brazos. It had the worst reputation of all the prison farms in Texas, sociologist Richard Vogel told CNN affiliate KTRK. Digging up and analyzing all 95 graves takes serious time, likely more than 9 months worth of work. Each unburial takes up to 2 days, plus up to 8 hours of cleaning and up to 15 hours for analysis, the school district said. So far, they dug up 50 graves and analyzed more than 22. Once they're dug up, a team of forensic archaeologists will look for more information on the corpses, such as their medical conditions and how they died. After that, the school district will work with the state's historical commission to figure out where to rebury them. Moore wants to get a memorial for the group as a form of restitution. I'm speaking for those who didn't have a voice. Then and now, he told CNN, I felt like I was called to set them free. 1016 correction. A previous version of the story incorrectly stated the Emancipation Proclamation freed all the slaves. Oh, okay. That's basically a retraction. But yeah. This is it's a very interesting story. It's a very sad story, of course, especially on the behalf of us, but it makes you want to know where these other burial sites, so to speak, are located, because I'm almost certain that there are more of them. I'm very sure of it. But like I said, many white people will look at something like this and they will try their best to gloss over it because they don't want to be held accountable for their actions or their ancestors' actions. And see, they can't, and I'm trying to get the words out. It's only so much you can do as far as running away from your past. You may not have been there. You may not have contributed to it yourself, but you trying to deny this happened or saying that it's propaganda or is going to make black people not like you, that doesn't help. Not one bit. But these are the so-called high IQ people. These are the so-called superior people, but look at all the stuff that they did. This literally shows how this, now you can see the nation was literally built on our backs. And that's probably why they wanted to deny that this even happened. I even saw someone say, well, how do we know they were all black? It could have been some people that were white up in there. I said, yeah, right. They would never. They're not going to go out there and pick their own cotton for 400 plus years while a bunch of other atrocities going to happen to them. What makes you think that they're going to do prison labor when they can make money off of it like they do today? But anyway, y'all let me know what you think down in the comments about this story. Like, share, subscribe if you can. Donate to the channel via PayPal, or you can become a patron on Patreon. I'll talk to you in the next one.